I'm going to give a brief background of who I am, and then we'll do more of a kind of a question and answer type of a session so that we can kind of explain to you guys a little bit more about Hire360 and what we do with Hire360. Again, my name is Deborah Whitaker. I'm the Director of Business Development and Diverse Supply Chain at Hire360. I started with Hire360 in December of 2019. My role right now, I'm working with over 160 minority and women-owned businesses that I'm scaling up. The objective of what we're doing with the businesses is to provide technical assistance and support of any resources or any things that those businesses need in order to get them to the next level of capability. So how I got started and a little bit of my background, I'm an accountant by education and most of my experience. I actually started off in banking. I started off working at what was now Chase, but used to be First National Bank of Chicago. I worked in international trade services, interest rate swaps, and international, and in the trust department, where I started getting my initial information on financial doings and everything. And then I went on to work with Accenture as a contractor, working with the marketing departments and providing budgets for Accenture. I worked for AIG, where I ran a Midwest region for AIG, where I did all the travel and then entertainment expenses and operating expenses for the Midwest region for AIG. And then, the list kind of goes on. And then I actually was flipping properties, doing fix and flips on the side. My father was a big advocate of not having one stream of income. So I grew up always having some kind of a business that I did on the side. So I did fix and flips for over 12 years until the market crashed. And I didn't get the email saying that, there was going to be a crash of the market. So got caught, where I had to actually reinvent myself because I was working as a consultant by that time. So I started working with small businesses. And with those businesses, I was helping them to get GC licenses, minority certifications, bonding, insurance, helping them with bid packages, anything that I can do that was actually doing their business and personal tax returns. I started doing that. And then in 2019, I started interacting with Related Midwest. Don Bernanke came to me, and he was referring some of his businesses over to me for me to help to scale up some of those businesses or provide some of my services. In doing so, we wound up, he had the premise of coming up with Hire360 and saying that instead of us looking at what we're doing as a one-off, there's a project comes in a community, a building or something that's happening, and the community wants to have opportunities for their businesses as well as for workers to get opportunities. He said, let's have a holistic approach. Let's think about what else is going on when that building goes up. There's material that had to be bought, supplies that have to be a part of it. And actually 40 to 50% of any construction project is on materials and supplies. So that means there's opportunities in that direction for businesses to actually get involved on the construction level on that aspect as well. So we started a fundraiser, knowing that one of the most difficult things for most small businesses is access to capital. We started a fundraiser where we raised $855,000, and we took on 8 businesses that we provided 100% collateral that we put up for those businesses in order for them to get loans. Those loans were from $10,000 up to $500,000. When we did that, we made sure that we were going to help them because maybe their credit scores was too low, they weren't cash flowing, whatever was preventing them from being able to go to banks to get those relationships. Fast forward from there, we actually realized that was limiting us and how many companies we can actually help. So we created what we call a loan pool, where we got guaranteed pool, where we put money into a deposit. And then this way we can actually leverage the liquidity of that deposit with the banks, where we do 3 to 5 times the amount of loans. So that has actually catapulted us to the point where now we've completed or helped assist with 86 loans to the tune of $15 million. And that is ongoing and it is increasing as we speak. So
I appreciate that. And let me take an opportunity. I didn't do a good job of introducing myself since we're going to have this question and answering format. My name is Louis Raymond. I'm an attorney, and I'm volunteer here at Operation Push. So you gave us a great history of yourself. When did Hire360 start?
Hire360 officially launched in January of 2020, right in the height of 2 months before we actually went into the COVID situation. So I wouldn't recommend starting a non-for-profit right at the height of a pandemic. But we started in January of 2020.
So in January of 2020, you started. The thought process was prior. And so what were some of the things that you saw that made you guys come together and think about 360?
What we noticed is that prior to us coming together, whenever there was projects, everyone existed in their own silo. So the GCs were not, communicating effectively with the subcontractors. Subcontractors not really coming together with the unions. So everyone was existing in their own silos and not communicating with each other. So we saw a need for us to be able to have an opportunity for us to show how each one of those entities impact the other. So if a GC has got a job that they're doing and they got a subcontractor that does not have the capabilities or need access to capital, whatever the case might be, them being able to refer those type of companies over to us for assistance, or those companies that are looking for bid opportunities or need to actually have relationships established, which we do a lot of networking and establishing relationships with the GCs and stuff. So we became a common table. And we saw a strong need for that to say, how can we put ourselves in a position where we can advocate for the industry as opposed to just, looking at just one aspect of it.
Now, I do understand and I do love the fact that you said that there's a need to have the relationships. So I want to come back to that, though. I do want to touch on that point. But I've talked to a lot of people who are in constructions and who want to start construction business or businesses, period. And one of the things always comes up is the access to capital. Now, so it's a two-part question for you. What are some of the things that you do that help businesses develop access to capital? And before they need access to capital or start their business, what are some of the things they should be doing to prepare themselves to get that access to capital?
Okay, good question. So this is actually a problem not only just for small businesses, any business, that's out there will have to have access to capital in order for them to have that gap filler to actually help them before they actually, receive payments on their projects or whatever. They need that gap filler to make their weekly payrolls, to make the purchase of materials. So what I actually do is I do the first look at the financials for those companies. I can actually, have an accounting background. I look at it and I can tell if there's red flags that actually the banks will look at, to say that, the integrity of those financials are not there, or if they don't have any back office, me coming to them and telling them you have to be able to track your revenues and expenses, because that's going to be one of the requirements. You have to have up-to-date tax returns. You have to have personal and business. You have to have, some kind of idea of projections of work that's coming down the pipeline to show your ability to repay the loans. So I think my introduction initially with the businesses is for me to help them to understand what the requirements are going to be in order for them to actually get the loans. Because a lot of the businesses didn't even know what the requirements are because they hadn't even went to the banks to pursue that. The importance of having a good credit score. Knowing how to, if you get a line of credit, how to revolve those lines of credit. So that was my definite, first impact or interest in dealing with the businesses. And then we play a very critical role in being a liaison between the banks and the businesses. Because whereas the businesses did not necessarily understand all the requirements, so a lot of the banks didn't understand the construction industry.
Right.
So if they look at receivables and say, okay, anything over 90 days is uncollectible, well, in the construction industry, 60 to 90 days is when you're first getting your first payout, and that's pretty customary.
Right.
So helping them understand that that's not an uncollectible type of receivable is very viable. And then also adding the component of, if they have work in process, if they have contracts of coming down the pipeline, then we can utilize that as well. If they got executed contracts to say that maybe they're not looking great on paper right now, but here's executed contracts. So that way I can start helping those businesses to look forward knowing that if they got a contract going to be starting in the next couple of months, they need to be starting to work on getting that access to capital now so that they can actually be prepared to make those payrolls and stuff that they're going to have to make before they get paid on those projects.
Okay, thank you. So let me take this one step back. We talked about relationships, and one of the things that I was definitely working with Reverend Jackson, it's relationships are very important. So we always hear about networking and things of that nature. So this is kind of it is an open question, but I want it to go whichever way you feel that it's best for this kind of situation. But relationships are important, and you have to develop relationships, but there's always these different networking events and things of that nature. How do you actually find value? How do you think, here I am, I want to start this construction business. I'm getting ready to come to 360. I'm sitting down talking to you. One of the first things you're going to ask me is, who do you know? What have you been doing? How do I leverage and actually make these networking events or my Rolodex, how will make my Rolodex work for me?
Okay. The first thing is that a lot of times businesses get accustomed to just having business cards that they hand out. My first thing I'm going to ask you is, do you have a capability statement? That capability statement gives a snapshot of you and your organization and what you've done, what your NACE codes are, your capabilities are. It gives a better snapshot of who you are when you hand something like that out in a networking event.
I'm going to stop you right there just because I know what you're talking about, but just in case someone who's trying to get in business, what are NACE codes?
NACE codes are basically the classifications of what your company actually can perform. So if you're a carpenter, in order for you to get certified as a minority contractor, they'll basically come in and justify. They're going to look at your equipment. They're going to look at some of your contracts that you've had, and then they're going to qualify you based on what your performance has been, that this is an expertise or this is an area that your company performs that service in. So it's something that's part of your certification. But if I'm a business looking to network and deal with you, that's the first thing I'm going to want to know. What are your trades and what are your capabilities are in?
So can we roll that back 1 minute? When you were talking about NAICS codes, we're talking about becoming certified, correct?
Yes.
So before they come to you, they have to be certified
No.
by SAM?
No, they don't have to be certified. We actually will assist them in getting certification. So,
Okay.
but what I first ask is, it's very important for companies to understand what their strategy is going to be. What pond are you going to be fishing in, so that we can put the right bait on the hook. So if you come in and you're going to be focused just on doing residential fix and flips, NAICS codes are not necessarily important. Certification is not necessarily important.
Okay.
But anything that you're going to be doing where you're going to be working with a GC or a company that's looking to meet the 26 and 6 requirements of the city and 50% residency. The 26 is, and 6 means they're going to be required because there's city money involved or county money involved. This says that they have to have minority participation of 26% minority contractors, 6% women-owned businesses. So in order to meet that, then you have to go through the City of Chicago or Cook County or WMBE, where you actually get the certification specific to the city or the county that you're in. Then if you're going to do state work, if you say, I'm going to be working in the city colleges, I'm going to be working for some of the penal institutions, then you need BEP CMS certification. Okay, we have a consultant that, no charge to the contractors that will actually assist in putting those applications in for you and walking you through the whole process until you get actually approved for any of those certifications.
Because you went real fast. So if you're going to, you're saying that in order to do business on localized projects, which would be the city or the Cook County, that you don't need to have state certification? You don't need to be registered as a corporation with the state?
Well, there's different projects. So if it's funded by the state, then you have to be BEP CMS certified.
Okay.
Okay, but there's a reciprocal process. So if you're already certified through the city or county, we can fast track you into the BEP. So a lot of companies don't know that, but when they come to us,
Right.
that's something that we explain to them, that you don't have to go through the whole process of that. We can actually fast track you and get you into BEP CMS.
All right. And
then
also for-
DBE certification is for transportation. Anything that you're doing on the tollway, IDOT, CTA, anything transportation related is DBE certification.
Okay.
Okay, so you have to have that certification if you're going to do anything transportation related. And
So-
that one is actually transferable to states because it's a federal designation.
Okay. So if we're talking about the Red Line project, which is a
Yes.
big project right now.
Yes.
To be certified, don't you need wouldn't you need a NAICS code for that?
Yeah, DBE any certification you go through,
You're going to have the NAICS code.
They
Because you said
provide that.
earlier, you don't necessarily have to have it. I'm just
if you're
trying to
doing
differentiate.
residential work that does
Okay.
not have city, state, or federal dollars involved.
All right, got it. Thank you.
One of the examples, what we're talking about, I went through them, and then I was able to, remember I get a certification through them, and then I was able to get a project with the CTA, also the engineering company. So it's very,
That's outstanding. Yeah, because that can be confusing on that pathway. Thank you for
Yes.
that.
So for everyone in our radio land, we have an individual here who's telling us how he did go through the program and how it really did, the program itself helped him to develop his business. And we thank him for that testimonial. So I'm gonna start my business. We got the NAICS codes. We've looked at my projections and my financials, and we kind of know where we're going. What are some of the next steps that we should be looking towards?
We actually we're an assist agency as well, so we get all the bids that are coming through for all the projects. We're actually, our partnership, let me kind of roll it back. So there's over $100 billion worth of projects that are coming down the pipeline in the next 10 to 15 years, just in the city.
100
Billion with the
Would it
B.
be?
With the B.
With the B, okay.
So that includes the Obama Presidential Center, that includes Sterling Bay, Lincoln Yards, that includes the 78, which we have 77 neighborhoods right now, and 78 is going to be the 78th neighborhood. That includes the Red Line extension, the O'Hare and Midway expansion, and that does not even include, the billions of dollars that actually have now been allocated for the infrastructure bill, as well as for the CEJA energy bill. So we have more opportunity than I've ever seen. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I've never seen this much opportunities in construction that exists right now.
So I'm kind of going to go back to, we talked for a minute beforehand, and I want you, listening to you say that we're working with a B when it comes to
Right.
dollars that are coming
Right.
in. And you've been here for 20 years. Now, before we started, we were telling me about being a little religious, and we go into the Bible, and how it was a
Skinny cow.
the skinny cow eating the fat cow.
Right.
So, in your experience, you don't see this type of flow of money coming in an perpetuity type of way.
No, everything is cyclical.
Right.
So we know for sure that we got 10 to 15 years of projects.
Okay.
Okay, so we don't need to, as a community, underserved community, we need to make sure we're prepared and able to, we hear all the time about creating generational wealth. You can't create it if you're not prepared. You cannot participate unless you're prepared. So the time is now. A lot of these projects have not even broken ground, and we have on top of the ones that I mentioned, there's a lot of other projects that are coming through, with a lot of other GCs, that are just, there's development that's unheard of that's happening right now. So, we have to get prepared. And when you're talking about networking and establishing, that's one of the things that we do really well. If you have determined that you want to work with a particular GC, I can make introductions to that GC so that you can actually, they'll know who submitted a bid. They'll know what your capabilities are. We have mentoring, mentor-protege type of opportunities where I'll get a call from a Power Construction or get a call from another organization saying, can you send me a couple of people? I need some painters. I need some, so they want to actually mentor. to show them how to do business with them. So we have those type of relationships that we actually establish.
And on top of that, so when you make that call, and just so people can kind of understand why that's so important, when you make the call and they've worked with you, then the people you call and have an understanding of the quality of individual that's now coming before them.
Yes.
So that's why I just want to make sure that that was clear. That when it comes to networking and things of that nature, and when somebody's making a call for you, it's just not like a cold call. Like,
No.
you have the relationships, and